I'm back. Hello my little feather pluckers, how are you all doing? Oh my god, I've got a wall of Marshalls. What's it about today? Well, in this video, this is part 2 of the series on tube amps and paraphernalia. I like to use them words, they're good, aren't they? Yeah, and we're going to do a rebias on the Marshall 1959 hand-wired. We're going to take a look inside the JTM45 that I actually built. It isn't actually a Marshall, although it looks like one. And talk about a couple of things inside there. Well, at least one thing inside there that I did from looking at other Marshall amps. And of course you're going to see a bit of an insight into what goes on in them. If you didn't watch the other videos in the series, they'll be down there in the text, so that's important. You might want to go and watch the whole series and then you'll realise that tube amps are not all yesterday, which some people think they are, but yeah, that's another story. Today we're going to do biasing in two ways. I'm going to show you how to do biasing on one of these type of amps, a Marshall amp, and but it's a sort of similar idea to a lot of different amps, how you bias them. Similar, that is. It gives you an idea. But I do want to stop you right there if you're not familiar with doing any of this sort of stuff. Or if you just want to have a poke around inside one of these type of amps, you don't want to be doing that. If you proceed from here and have a go yourself, well, you can do that, but I'm not telling you to. As far as I'm concerned, if you're not qualified, you shouldn't really be even taking the lid off. Yeah, I would do nothing unless you're really au fait and you've got the necessary equipment to do what I'm going to show you. So understand that there's at least 400 volts in there, in the capacitors as well, even with it turned off, that will kill you if you mess around, and that's the end of the warning. So while I'm doing the standard sort of bias test and check on this one, I'm also going to be changing the power tubes, which you might have seen me talk about in the previous video. And I'm also going to change the preamp tubes. I've got a set of preamp tubes coming along, and I'm going to talk about those because actually there's a very good reason why I'm choosing which ones I am. They're not just any old tube. A very good reason that you probably don't know about. Well, you might not. So that'll be covered in this one. In this one I'm going to show you just generally inside. I'll show you where the bias point is, and you'll be able to do this one yourself, well, if you're qualified. And then I'll show you the little mod that I talked about in the first video in this series on the 1959. In this one we've got this little a little circuit I stole from a later Marshall ST1 board, and made a little board and fitted it in this to reduce the noise, which is the hum and things like that. It's like a balancing little circuit. So very easy to do, but if you can't do it, or you're not qualified, or you have no clue, I would stay well away and just use these videos as educational, because that's really what they are, quite educational videos. There are loads on the internet, but there aren't really loads quite the same as mine. Mine are not the best in the world, but they're certainly not too technical for normal people to learn a bit. Yeah, some of the opinions are just my own, of course. What do I know? Now, just before we do get down to it, as I said, I shall be showing you the biasing by calculation method, and you do that in one way, and then the second way we'll be using this Bias Master from Tube Amp Doctor. Now, I've had this a lot of years, honestly, for year upon year. This one's a BM4, and they might have got newer than this or updated it or whatever, but they might not have. So you're going to see that one in action. But if you haven't got one of these, I'm also including the other method so that you can do it with just a meter. Yeah, Makes a lot of difference if you haven't got one of them. You could be more accurate actually. Yeah, quite interesting. Okay, well, I've got the main chassis of the amp out, and we're going to need to do a few things. But what I want to do first, as I said, is I'm only going to do this, by the way, with the bias master, because I just want to check what the tubes are like, what they're set to, before we do anything, just as a reference really. And I'll just make a note of what they are for later. Although I'm going to change them, I'd just like to see where they're at. You know, if you look at these tubes down here, you can see that they've been very hot, and that was the reason I wanted to change these tubes. So let's run through and connect up the bias master and the mains and the rest of it, and just have a quick check. It only takes a few minutes. Well, the very first thing you're going to need is some means of putting a load on the output where the speakers go. Now you can do that with a speaker. That makes sense. But I tend not to do that. I'm sort of in this front room out of the way, you know, where it's pretty safe for me. No wife. And yeah, I don't want to be lugging, you know, speaker cabinets around and things like that. So what I always use, and you don't have to, but you must put a load on this. I use a cab clone from Mesa Boogie. And this has got a load inside it. This is a 16 ohm one, which I happen to have set up as 16 ohms on the amp. And you just use a speaker cable. And note, I do say a speaker cable, not one that you use with your guitar. They're not shrouded in the same way, and the cabling's different, so that's important. So we just plug that in. It's all easy. Out of the way, and plug it in, input from amp. And to be honest, that sits over there, out of the way, and that's the first part done. How hard is it? And if you're using speaker cab, just do the same. Make sure the impedance, by the way, is correct on the amplifier for what it is you're connecting, whether it's a speaker or some load box or something. Now the next thing I plug in is, but I don't plug it into the mains, I just take a mains lead. Yours may be different wherever you are in the world. And I just sort of plug that in, ready to go, but I don't plug it in the mains. And lastly, what I want to do is to take out the bias master and whip off these tubes, keeping them in the same order. Fit the bias master, I'll show you how we do that, and then just run this up and check what the biasing is currently with these old tubes. Yeah, you don't have to do this, but I am. It's just part of what I need to do to this amp anyway. So let's whip out these tubes. It's all very easy. Now the bias master comes with these funny looking things here. Let's separate one out. Oh my god, it's tangled. But if we just separate one pair out like that. So what you've got is you've got two of these funny bases and two wires. We're only interested in the funny bases for now. So what we really want to do is to bung these in like this and fit the second one. Now we can fit the other pair just the same. So in effect it's like sort of extending the base where the tubes fit. Now we fit the tubes back in. Oh, and by the way, if you do own a bias master, you don't have to generally remove the chassis to do a bias master test. You'd have to remove it to do the adjustment, of course, which is another story, so I would always recommend you take it out. But in the manual they say you don't have to remove the chassis. Well, yeah, you do. So let's refit these tubes just back into the exact same holes that they were in before we started. We don't fit these things on, by the way. That's just a temporary sort of thing while we take a look at the tubes just to see what the measurements are of the old set. just for a bit of fun really. There's no real necessity to do this, except that I like to do it so I know where the amp was when I got here, and I think that makes sense. Some people might not, but I do. Next we take this, so we can say 1, 2, 3, 4. So we've got them into the bias master. It's all pretty simple and boring. And you can turn it on, but you won't get anything at the moment, as you can see. Turn it back off. Next thing really is to make sure your amp's turned off on the front and it's on standby, and then we can plug this this mains lead in and start moving forward. Now what I'm going to do is just turn the amp on. There it is. You might hear the hum or not. Now we can turn the thing off standby as well, like so. Now you've got to let this warm up for a little while. So it's just sitting there, warming up. I'd leave it 5 or 10 minutes just sitting like that. I don't have the the volumes turned up, by the way, and I sort of sit all the rest of it sort of at 12 o'clock on the you know, on the tone stack. That's about it. So we just sit and wait. You could look at it now, but the figures won't be correct. So just give it 5 or 10 minutes, which will be in seconds to you viewers right now. Okay, well I'll be taking measurements off camera, and then we can take a look at them afterwards. Okay, so if we just switch to number 1, that's 37.3. Number 2, 23.3. Wow. Number 3, 33.2, give or take, and the last one's 39.8, give or take. So as you can see, I've written down the measurements, and you can see quite clearly that one of these is rather far away from the rest. The others, 37, 33, 39, these two are not too bad. That's not that far out, but I like them closer. And this one's wildly out, so it's a good indication that there is at least this big discrepancy. I don't like that, so I always, you know, get tubes that are matched, and matched tubes will have far less of a discrepancy across here. And that'll be the same no matter how you measure them. You know, the discrepancies will be less on matched tubes, and if you've got a new set, which this amp really needs, I guess, this is one reason to do it. Yeah, and so is the overheating on the bottom of the tubes. That's another good reason to do it. Like I said in the previous video, I don't know all the history of this amp. What I do know is it's good to check the tubes like this if you buy a new amp, just to see what's happening before you do anything, and then you've got a good basis to work from. Yeah. So I hope that's been interesting so far. Just looking at an amplifier that's come out, I bought the amp, I did nothing to it, and that's how it came to me. No fault to the seller, they just probably never checked. But I do check, and you should check too, because if you get one of these tubes go really belly up, it could really seriously damage your amp. And I prefer to do preventive maintenance rather than maintenance after the fact that could cost you the transformer or something high. You don't want to go there. So I'm going to take the tubes out now. I'll leave the bias master bases in. I'm just going to take the tubes out, fit some more, take a quick look. Let me go get the tubes and let's talk about what we're going to fit. Well, you'll see me fit them actually. Now this particular set of tubes I've got, Svetlana, I like these, and these pretty good tubes. I like them, no issues with them. They're not in any particular order, I don't think. Oh, they are. I decided to put them in an order a while ago. So we've got number 1. Let's just get these out. Hold on. Okay, just a quick look at the tubes I'm going to fit. As you can see, the Svetlana L34. It says here made in Russia. Could be good. There's no dates on these, you'll probably note, but they have got this orange dot, and when I was down at Marshall some years ago, going around the factory, I spoke to Phil Wells about the orange dot. You watch my video that's listed down in the bottom down there if you haven't seen that. And he was saying, oh yeah, they got the orange dot, they'll be fine in a Marshall. That's what he said. I pushed him further, but I didn't get the answers. So yeah, they're within the tolerances for Marshall. And at one stage, Marshall, I do believe, used to fit this tube. These are not new tubes, but you can see that they're not burned in any way or anything like that. So I'm going to use these in here. But if I can't get a balance, I've got another set that are purportedly set up as balanced. So let's fit these first. Well, here it is. Tubes fitted. All sitting there nice and proud. And what I'm going to do is turn it on and give it another sort of 10 minutes to warm up again. Okay, well, they've been running a little while now. You can see they're quite hot. Maybe you can't see that, but you might get a picture on the screen that shows that. In any case, let's just take a look. I did swap them around a little bit to get the best match. So if we turn this on, you're going to get these sort of figures. Let's write these down. These are spec one. Number one's 42.4. Number 2 was 41.1. Number 3, well, we'll call it 40. Yeah, there it is. And number 4 is 45, which is slightly high. What the difference between number 1 and number 4 is 42.5 to 45, so they're not that far out. The bias does want adjusting though. I would say. If you noticed, irrespective of the actual numbers on here, that the actual measurements, the discrepancy is what I'm looking for at this stage. I'd like to have them all exactly the same number. It's never going to happen, I don't think. But that takes you to another question. When you're buying a set of tubes that are supposedly matched, you'd expect to see them all pretty near, really, irrespective of the level, because that's adjustable later. But as far as the balance is concerned, that's really part of what you're paying for, matched tubes. The magic word is matched. And a lot of people will sell them as matched tubes, but when you actually get to put them in your amp, they may or may not be. Now, just so I can demonstrate that, I've actually got a set of tubes over there from a particular company. He's got all the measurements on the outside. Now, I know him to be a pretty good company. Whether the tubes are right or not is another story. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to lift these out and I'm going to put in that set of brand new tubes that are sold as matched sets. And let's take a look at what we actually get. Now, this is not actually yet biasing your amp, but it will be presently. And I think not many people out there seem to quote, get this bit. And this is what you're paying for, the matched bit. So let me go and get them. These tubes I've got, bear in mind, I don't really want to give it as a sort of, whether they're good or bad, a reflection on anyone. I'm just testing a set of tubes in an amp, and there could be a million reasons why I guess they could be wrong, but as far as I'm concerned, I've got these JJ tubes. Now, I don't like JJ tubes. I happened to buy these some while ago. But if you look on the front, it talks of plate current 41, transductance 6. Next one, plate current 41, transductance 6. In fact, they're all exactly the same on the outside of the box. So one would assume if I fit these into here, yeah, they should all be the same or as near as damn it. And if they're far better than the ones that I've got in there at the moment, I could leave them in, I may not. We'll see. Okay, so I've now got the JJs in there that they said on the case were all matched up and the rest. Let's have a quick look at what the measurement says here, just as a reference really, more than anything. And then I'll just choose the best ones, I guess. But I won't mix tubes, no. So let's have a quick look at what's down here and I'll write it down as we go. Okay, number one's 42.43, we'll say, 43. Yeah, 43. Number two's 46 point, 46.6. We'll call it that. Next one is 44.5. And the last one is 44.2. Well, let's just take a few minutes to just assess what we've got. Here are all the answers. So, on the first set that the tube amp came with, that number 2 was 23.3. Way down on all the others. All the others varied between 33.2 and 40 near enough. So, yeah. Then we looked at the Svetlana. We got 42.4, 41.1, 40, and the last one's 45. Well, 40 to 45 is a variance there. And on the JJs, we got 43, 46.6. We'll call it 46.5 to keep it simple. 44.5 and 44.2. So, yeah, we got a 3.5 spread on that, but we got a 5 spread on the Svetlana. So, looks like the JJs are probably the most aligned for what we're trying to achieve. But pity the Svetlana, that last one was out. They're all perfectly serviceable at that, except the first set, which I would tend not to work with. I think for me on this one, I'm going to be working on, I think I'm actually going to put the Svetlana in there, because I trust the brand better than I trust JJ. Oh, okay, here we are, round underneath the amp, and as I said, this one's a 1959 hand-wired amp from Marshall. Now, a lot of Marshall amps are very, very similar really. They might not look the same, but they've all usually got a bias adjustment there. Some of them have got a secondary adjuster, which we're going to look at on the JTM45, thanks to me doing my little mod. But don't worry about that. On some of the Marshall ST1 boards, they actually have that other adjuster built on the board. On these amps, they don't have any such luck. If your amp's noisy, then it's noisy, but this one's quite nice. So you can see that the amp's been turned on and it's been left running. There's the 6-volt light, been running a while. So let's go a little bit closer so we can see what's happening down here. So I'm just going to look at these settings again now before we go anywhere. Yeah, that last one's the highest, so we'll work on the basis of happy medium. Okay, well, where would you want to set this thing to? But actually, Tube Amp Doctor have the answer. They provide a document like this. You may not be able to see it, but don't worry, I'm going to put one on the screen now. You can probably see that on the screen. And what they do is they obviously have a service department. They've been doing it for a lot of years, so they know in general where your amp's going to be with particular tubes, or where it should be. And for this amp, it says here Marshall 100 watt with EL34s. You should be working on between 25 and 40 as a reading on this. Between 25 and 40. Well, we know it's a little bit high at 45. So if we was to move around a little bit and bring it down, let's just, yeah, it's a bit high. So we can make an adjustment quite easy, just even working off the first tube. We can just get in here. You've got to be very careful, by the way. There's at least 400 volts in here, and I'm telling you now, it'll fry you as soon as I look at you. So no experience, no qualifications, nothing, don't do it. So we can adjust this now. You'll see down here how it'll move one way or another. There you go. And I'm turning that anti-clockwise to reduce it. If I bring that to 37. Okay, well, after a long entwined amount of work, just trying to get the Svetlana adjusted in the best way I could, with the least amount of difference between the tubes. In fact, it was very difficult as I lowered this down, So I switched the tubes back to JJ, and this is the result. And I haven't really checked this yet. They've been sitting here 5 or 10 minutes, so you should be cooking now. So let's have a look what we've got as measurements. These are the JJ, remember. So the original paper for the JJ was, these were 44. And of course we turned it down, didn't we? 33, 37.5, 35.3 and 35.2. Well, they're not too bad. I'd like to see these a little bit higher personally. I tend to set them, if you want the truth, on about 37, and this is probably the highest one. Oh no, that's the highest one. 38. If I base that as being the highest one, I wouldn't really want to take it any higher than that. I can go up to 40, but at 38, that's pretty. It's pretty cooking, that is. Oh, it's 38.5. It's hovered around there for a while. We could bring it down maybe to 38. But of course it's affecting the others. 34 basically. 35.2. 35, 35.1. They would all have been great, wouldn't they, had they all been like them two? No. Yeah, so it's hovering at 38, and I think I'm going to leave it at that. I don't really want to take it any higher. Now, I've always said that these tubes, these EL34s, are typically between 25 and 40 on this measurement here, on these milliamps. So I think where we're hovering, it's at the top end, and that makes the amp distort maybe a little bit nicer. If you have them too low, if you was to set them at 25, say, and I've seen them low as 20 in some amps actually running, you know, they sound not quite so nice. But the higher this is, the more it loads the tubes, and they don't last as long basically. They get hotter as well, so they call them hotter tubes or colder tubes depending on where this is. This is about 38, like I said. Number one's 34, 33.7, 34, 30, yeah. So I'm going to write these down. Okay, so that's the biasing with a bias master. Let's zoom out a bit. And that's all well and good. However, what if you haven't got a bias master? There's the problem. Well, let's think about that for a moment. Now what I am going to do is I'm going to leave the bias master in just so I can just show you these measurements. I can show you on the other meter, I suppose, and we'll just look at this after. Yeah, so I'm going to get the regular meter out and we're going to do the measurements. At this point is where you kill yourself if you don't know what you're doing, or you just don't care, or whatever. So don't do it. Just let me do it and let me get killed, right? What do you mean, good? Yeah, so I'm going to get the other meter. We'll leave this out of the way for now, and we'll do everything and all the calculations and the rest of it, which is more suited to generalised amps than just this amp here. You get an idea of what you need to do. It isn't that hard to do, but you do have to get the maths out and all the rest. So hold on, let me get organised. Okay, well, here we go. This is the calculation for the bias current. The maximum power divided by the HT times 70%. I'll give you this bias current. EL34 has got 25 watt maximum for that particular tube. So if you've got EL34s, it's all good. So work on that. The HT is the plate voltage. It's high and it's usually around 480 volts. Well, mine was 496, as you note there. And just for reference, the voltage I had in the HT was that. Pretty constant. And I checked that on pin 3 of the tube. Now for this percentage here, it's normally between 65 and 85%. That's the value swing that you can have. And it says here, typically at 480 volts, at 85%, would be 44 milliamps. Well, you'll remember, you'll remember somewhere that our voltage at this bottom here was the highest was 38, but it's saying you could get up to 44, so you could push that to 40 and we'd still be okay. But they said on the tab information, you know, oh yeah, 40 is maximum, but 40 isn't maximum actually. The maximum is determined by all this lot, right? So you do your maths and off you go. So it's not that difficult. So we got 25 divided by 496 times 70% equals, now I have to get a calculator for that, so hold on a minute. Let's imagine we wanted to push that to 75%. Let's have a look at that. It's not rocket science, is it? Let's have a look here. We've got 25 divided by 496 equals that times 75% equals, you can see that's 37.8. That's how you do it. 37.8 milliamps. So that's 38. And I'm on about, funny enough, 37.8. So I'm going to leave it exactly where it is at 75% rather than 70%. So it's going to make it cook a bit, but that's okay. But you can go from 65 to 85. So how hard is it? Well, it isn't. And I used this meter, by the way, to achieve the measurements. That's how you do it if you haven't got the bias master. Now, in my opinion, to be honest, I like the bias master because you turn it on like that and you're in business. 38, well, that'll do. 36.2, that's good because it's nearer the 37, 38 where I'd like it. And 36.2, it was 35. So it's all settled down a little bit now with leaving it running, you know. Yeah, I'm going to leave it at that. You can see it's hovering around where I'd want it to be. Yeah, and the others accordingly, 35, 36.6, 36.6, so the definer's there. Now I do want to caution you again about that voltage, you know, when you're talking of 496 volts, listen, don't come near it unless you know what you're at. It'll kill you. Yeah, no messing. And keep one hand in your pocket. I always remember speaking to an old television repairman, you know, when they were valves all them years back, or tubes. And he said, oh yeah, you always see me with one hand in my pocket. I thought he was just doing something, but he wasn't. He said that, oh, you put two hands in, the voltage will go up your arm, through your heart, and out the other one, and your heart will stop. It's a bit like one of them things you see on the TV, you know what I mean, don't you? Defibrillator things. Except it stops it rather than starts it. I'll put your hands in again to start it. No, you don't want that. The point is, I joke, but it's all a serious thing. You know, you just got to be very careful with what you do with these things. Remember, when you turn them off, it's all still there. Not a good idea. So that's basically the maths behind it. Those were my settings that I achieved, and you could see the variances that did smooth out a bit later. I ended up with JJs, but well, you can't have everything in life, can you? Yeah. Well, now I'm going to flip the amp back over and we're going to have another little chat about tubes on the other tubes, the preamp tubes. We're going to cover that as well. Just while we're doing it, why not? Hold on. There now, that wasn't all too bad, was it? Yeah. I mean, some guys make a hoo-ha and a kerfuffle about it, but at the end of the day, it's not really rocket science, is it? Okay, well, moving on a little bit with this very same amp. You know, this was bought second hand, made in 2013, week 3, not month 3, which is what I said, it's week 3. And yeah, well, all the tubes are indeterminate. Well, they're not so indeterminate now. We've got brand new ones in there that are going to run at a real nice sound. But you've got to look at these preamp tubes as well, because preamp tubes actually very, very important. You can't put any old things in. Well, you can, you probably have, but I think not. And let me explain why. Preamp tubes, like most things, there's good, there's bad, and there's indifferent. And if we take these covers off and have a look at these down here, the ones they come with, and I've done nothing special with these, they are just what they are. Let's take one out. My God, them are in tight. Well, that's a good thing. Yeah, it says here valve 0006 S 0512 Marshall ECC 83, and I can surmise that these others, they're exactly the same. All three will probably be the same. Yeah, they're all exactly the same. There's nothing wrong with them tubes in there, probably, but you can improve on them. Well, what do you mean you can improve on them, Tony? Well, you know much about preamp tubes? You might not. Most people don't. You plug them in and they work. But each one of these preamp tubes you've got here actually is 2 stages. Think of them like being cut in half. So you've got part 1 and part 2. So signal will come in on part 1 and do its thing, and it might continue to part 2, or you might have something from another feed on one of the others coming in to part 2, and so on and so forth. But it could be that it comes in on part 1, it gets hopped across to part 2, and then it moves to the next tube. It could be that sort of organisation or not. I'm not going to be technical about it. There's no point in being technical about it. So each tube is 2 stages, not 1. But this third one here, well, that's another story. That's not quite what you might think it is. It isn't like those 2. The last one. Yeah, this tube's what they call the pie tube. Well, it's got nothing to do with apples. It's a pie tube. Anyway, basically, you really need to have both sides balanced equal. And you know, on these tubes, both sides are not always the same. If I was to look at one of these, for example, this one's been done valvetubeguitaramps.com, whoever he is. I must have bought it at some stage. But one side of it's 1.32 and the other side's 1.76, whatever that means. What it does mean though, is it does mean there's a difference. And if you put a tube in this pie socket, wherever it may be on your amp, if it's a different amp, and it's balanced, it's better than it not being balanced. That's all I can say. So you can go and buy tubes that are balanced, actually balanced for that position in your amp. In case you didn't know. Now let's talk a little bit more about preamp tubes. These are 12AX7s. In fact, they're all 12AX7s. But this first one's a 12AX7A-C. There will be some difference, but I'm not too worried about that. And neither should you be. But the point is, when you're looking at these tubes, these preamp tubes, you find normally a lot of difference relating to gain and noise. Because usually those two things, think about it, they go hand in hand, don't they? If you increase the gain, you get more noise. Turn your amp up, you'll hear it like a snake. Yeah, hissing Sid. Well, that isn't what you want. You want to get rid of that noise as much as possible. And that noise is primarily generated in these tubes along here. So if you've got any old tube, I could name some brands, but I won't. The brands I will name is tung-sol. And the reason I'll name tung-sol is this. that they have a particularly low noise level. Particularly low compared to a lot of the others, even compared to JJ, from what I see. They have a high gain and a low noise level for what the gain is compared to others. Now if you go and have a look on the internet, you'll find comparisons where they show you these gains and noise levels, and you will find that tung-sol happen to have better results, higher gain and lower noise, and it's a fair bit lower noise. So on this amp I've decided to fit 2 tung-sols on 1 tad. Well, what's the tad about? Now tad, I've used tad tubes for a long time. The reason I didn't fit them in here is I had these already. I've got 2 sets. I don't want to keep buying and buying because they're not cheap anymore. But this preamp tube here, this 12AX7A-C, is a selected tube. And what that really means, all the selected tubes I've ever bought from Tad or Tube Amp Doctor have never failed, ever. I've never had a single problem, whereas the likes of JJ, I've seen a problem. Albeit the JJs were installed from a factory, an amp maker, I've still seen the problem, and it makes you a bit less, a bit more careful regarding tube brands. And JJ isn't my favourite, but it's in there now, so that's that. So this selected one I'm going to put in the most important place in the amp, and that is this one here, or V1. It's called V1, valve 1, or T1 you could call it almost. And these other 2, these tung-sols, I'm going to whack them in these 2 because I can. Because I know they're very low noise and quite high gain. And indigo, just like that, you just whack them in. It's not rocket science, just get the legs lined up, won't you? And there they are in there. So that's the little bit I wanted to talk about regarding preamp tubes, which I don't think many people actually talk about when they're looking at fitting tubes to an amp. They go and do one little bit and that's it. But of course there's more than one little bit. And while the preamp tubes don't fail as often, they still do fail. They go microphonic and you'll have squeals and all sorts of things. It'll be like a pig. So you want to get that right. If you're going to do this, you might as well do the latter for the cost. I mean, yeah, come on. Okay, well that's it for this amp. What I'm going to do is put this back in its case, tidy up a little bit, and then I'm going to get the JTM45 out and show you a little bit about that. I'm not going to be setting it up because it's basically the same procedure for that one as it is for this one. Yeah, but it's good to take a look inside and have a look around, and yeah, I'm sure you'll like it with my little mod. Yeah, here it is. This is my Marshall JTM45. In fact, it says there Mark II JTM45 that I made some years ago. Yeah, hold on, I'll tell you when I made it. Like a good boy, I put a serial number on it, and I made this in May 2010, and it's worked ever since. So it's been working for about 5 years, 10 years near enough, 10 to 20, yeah. Pretty good, eh? And I tried to do the best I could when I made this amp. Yeah, I could have bought a JTM45 from Marshall, but it wasn't quite the same. It didn't have the cases like this, and you know, it's just nice. And you can see where this one's been running flat out, actually, testing some other equipment that we're going to be seeing in this series. And it works particularly well, this one does. So what I'm going to do is whiz round the back, we're going to pull it out and have a look inside, and it's all good, yeah. I like this one because it worked. Actually, I've made a few amps and I just enjoyed making this one. I haven't been back inside for a very long time. Now, I don't use it every day, but, you know. Anyway, let's whiz around. As they say in YouTube land, without further ado. You've seen the idiots, haven't you? Anyway, I'll go and do it now and hang on. Well, I haven't slithered it out yet. I just wanted to raise this point about this here. Point is, this is exactly how Marshall cables used to come out of the amp on this model way back in the day. So when I made it, I decided to make it, rather than doing what they do now, I decided to make it with one that came out and just put one of these on the end. That was a good idea. Keeps it all original, and you've got your speakers, 4, 8 and 16. There's nothing else on it. There's no this, that or the other. Oh, look, got a Marshall sticker on the back. I get worse, don't I? Note the wood screws, guys. Yeah, I made it how they used to make them, you know. None of this screws like you've seen on the back of the 1959 reissue. I mean, this is how they used to make the bloody things. Oh. Well, here we are. Oh my God, this is taking me back a while. I've even got diagonal transformers and a tone clone 7 Henry choke down here, which you'll get to see in a little while. Yeah, so I've got a GZ34S rectifier tube. I've got two 6L6 GCs here, a matched pair. I don't know which brand those are. Oh, where are they? They're Philips. So I will have bought those as new old stock or something like that. Or old new stock. Some people do. What we got by way of tubes? I don't even remember what I put in this thing. Let's have a look. Oh, this one's an unbranded 12AX7A. It's probably Chinese, that is. I'm not particular, am I? Not particular, you know. That's the word you use. So look at these other two. Surely I must have done better than these tubes. Yeah. Ah yes, that looks like I did. This one's a... Oh, this one's Softec. Yeah. Why have I got the unbranded one there? Who knows? Probably some reason. What's the other one in here? Oh my God. Yeah, this is a Softec 2. Yeah. It says 0111 as a date code. Oops. He's back right. Yeah, so there you have it. Two Softecs and an unknown. Two Philips and a JJ of all things. Diagonal transformers, a tone clone. Swizz that around a bit, you can see it now. Yeah, tone clone choke from Mercury Magnetics, it says here. I even signed it, TM 2009. Yeah, it's when I used to have a brain, you know. It's all changed since then. Anyway, let's move on and take a look underneath. Now then, what have we got here? Well, you can see it's a very nice laid out amp, and it's one that took me a while to make, really. Yeah, I bought loads and loads of bits from all over the show, and I wanted to make it just like they used to. And there they are. There's the main board, and it's got Sozo caps on it. You can tell straight off that's cost money. Yeah, it's all very nice, easily workable. That's what I like about it. And I really took my time when I made this amp. Really took my time. Yeah, you can see all the stuff going on. Decent switches, decent this, decent that. Decent everything, really. Yeah. Little fuse inside. But down here is the little circuit board that I made because the main circuit board didn't have what an ST1 Marshall board had. Now the thing is about the ST1 Marshall board, they were all different than this. They weren't like point to point like this. You know the newer ones, you've seen them. They make the ST1 to this day, I believe. Pretty confident. So this is okay, but I couldn't go down the route of getting the thing quiet. One of the problems that I experienced when I made this was that it just wasn't quiet. It had this hum. And on the ST1 you'll find two things. Well, that isn't there, it's over here on the ST1, and that's the bias pot. But next to the bias pot, this way, you'll see another one, and the another one is basically that little board I made there. And rather than it being on the PCB that I already had, what I did was make it separate and just wire it in. And all it is, let's go in a bit closer, we can take a good look at it. Yeah, so there it is. You can see it. It's got one of these little adjusters on it, and the adjuster's got a couple of resistors there. Yeah, so you might see the picture now, and you can see the resistors. So you can go figure them out yourself. I even forgot what they are, but I'm sure you can do it. My little board signed by ABM. Me. Yeah, so it goes off to here, and it goes around to this one. And what it does, oh, this one at the bottom, that goes to ground. What it does is it sort of balances up these two sides to reduce the hum. And it does a brilliant job of reducing the hum. It's absolutely such a simple mod, but nobody ever does it. Maybe they don't get hum, but I think they're liars. They do get home. I've never seen anybody make that circuit anywhere on an amp like this. It's all a bit crazy. These people know what they're doing, but do they? I don't know. You only got to take a look at an ST1 Marshall board, and there it is on the board. You just make your own, and it makes these amps really, really nice and noiseless. So zooming back a bit, like I said, you know, a nice another look at it. Well, it's here, because I haven't taken it out again. I'm not sure if these were F&T. I've been asleep since then. I can't really whiz round and read them, but I don't really care either. But you can see there's lots of Sozos on here. Can't see what brand are them there. I think the Tube Amp Doctor them are. Yeah, could be. Yeah, Tube Amp Doctor. Yeah, so you know where them from. Them will be good. These are good. It's all good basically. There's no crap in here. And you've got a lot of the old carbon film type of resistors as well. Although we move on to, I think them are metal, but the carbons are down here. But they're all down here. There's no getting away from that. Yeah, built just like JTM45, I guess. Transformers might be slightly different, but they aren't that different. I think these are the ones that they fit to the JTM45 reissue, I think. Can't be sure. This is a 30 watt amp, of course, with those tubes. 2 6L6s. Works out at being a 30 watt. Because that's what the original was. Yeah. What else can I say? Anyway, I hope you like a look inside here. Because I just thought it was all good. And when I built it at the time, really worth the effort. And then I bought the case in a nice cream colour. But everything I did, I tried to make exactly as near as I could to the original. Yeah, it never will be the original, but it's great to make an amp, whether you buy a kit or whether you buy the bits or do a Chiraya tone or whatever it is you do. It's probably worthwhile. Anyway, enough about this one. Let me go back up. Well, there you have it. That's the inside of the JTM45 that I built in May 2010 with my little circuit for getting rid of the hum. And anybody that has got an amp like this and it's got hum, you have a look at that little circuit and have a go. Takes no doing. I hope you've liked that. It's not something I've really shown in reviews, and I might go and do a review about it, but you've had a sort of review now. We haven't heard it, but you will do. You're going to hear this one. Yeah, so, yeah, what more can I say about that amp? Nothing. Just one thing before I do go. This is an aluminium chassis, just like the old ones. Yeah, I thought I'd mention that. Well, we're nearing the end of, section 2 of the series, or video 2, or call it what you want. And this one, as you saw, was all about biasing and tubes and changing tubes and which brands and all that sort of stuff. I hope it was interesting, because I haven't seen anybody else do what I've done regarding this particular subject. Now, there might be somebody on there that has, but I haven't seen it. That's all I can say. Hope you like looking at this one. Hope you like looking at the 1959. In the next video in the series, we're going to be moving on to taking a look at the probably the Roland Waza tube amp extender, or expander, I think they call it. I haven't seen any decent reviews of that. I've seen plenty of people try and sell them, but we'll be reviewing it in here, pulling it apart, and then we'll move on to listening to it with this amp and that amp through that particular product, and how it can enhance the product so that you can, the amps, so you can use them today. And most people think you couldn't use stuff like this today, but I can assure you can. And you can use it very effectively as well. You'll get sounds, the feel of the playing when you play. It's like nothing else. Honestly, it's awesome, and that's part of the reason of doing the series. As I said, the second one. So that'll be part 3. Part 4 might be some mods and things like that, or mod. I don't think I'll go doing much of it because I like them as they are, but I'm only doing it to show people, really. So don't forget to visit www.TonyMckenzie.com, where you find lots of reviews. I haven't updated in a while, but when I've done these videos, I think I'm going to do that. Yeah, I think I will. What else? Down below will be some references to all the videos that I've done regarding these amps. The playing won't be until the next video, so you'll be hearing them on the next video with the Waza expander. That's the thing. I wanted to get through the technical stuff out of the way. Well, it isn't really technical, is it? But the interesting stuff, it's just as interesting as playing. It's all the same thing, isn't it? Yeah. So, yeah. Till next time. Oh, one last thing. If you're 39 or over, go to your doctor and get checked out for prostate cancer, because, yeah, it can kill you. And the worst thing about prostate cancer is people think, oh, it's only for people over 60 or something. Well, they're wrong. I had prostate cancer when I was in hospital. I was looking at guys across from me, 39 years old. Yeah, it's not good, but it's even worse if it goes dark and stays dark. So go and get checked. It takes no doing, really. And yeah, you'll be alive to watch these videos. Yeah, I'm glad I went and got checked, so you don't forget to do it. Now get out of here.